Hi, my name is Drew Goldstein. I'm a partner with McKinsey and Company with our people and organizational practice, and I focus with my clients on culture, talent, organizational design, organizational development, and operating model. And today I'm here with my friend Dana from NXP, and we had quite an engaging session on return to office, which you're in the midst of live. So would love for you to first introduce yourself.
My name is Dana Larsen. I am the Vice President of Talent and Organization Development for NXP Semiconductor. We are one of the world's largest producers of chips for the automobile industry, industrial manufacturing, and other processes, as well as the mass market.
So let's jump right into some of the conversation that we had today. So I mentioned you are currently going through your return to office strategy. Would love for you to share with folks the rationale behind bringing folks back into the office, and how many days are you thinking of?
Yeah, so I think the main rationale from the standpoint of our core leadership is we are an engineering-based organization, and that there is something unique, energizing, magical about coming together as teams in general, but specifically within the engineering space when it comes to creating more innovative designs, getting the right people together to talk about solutions rather than just individual components. And that requires a higher degree of interaction and engagement. So that's the overall rationale. If I can speak for our CEO, that would be the overall rationale. And the expectation is 3-2, so three days in the office.
Okay. And how did you land on the 3 days, right? We had the session today. We asked folks to stand on one side of the room if they were 0 days required, and the other end of the spectrum with being 5 days required. And we did see most of the folks in the middle, so similar to your org. So curious if it was easy to land in that spot, or if you had different personalities and dynamics that you had to deal with.
Yeah, while I wasn't engaged personally in the conversations around that, we've received plenty of reports as to what did happen. Mm-hmm. And so our CEO, Kurt Sievers, and his team met. And from what I gather, there were many different points of view. You had some that were all for back to work 5 times a week. You have others that were thinking that no, completely flexible would be the right thing to do. So it was quite variable, and so they kind of settled right in the middle when it came to a compromise of sorts.
We're seeing a lot of organizations in the conversation today split the difference. Yeah. So what would you say has been the most challenging part about bringing folks back into the office and really the communication vehicles around it?
Well, I think there's sort of the anticipated reaction and trying to anticipate what all of those different reactions might be, so
right.
that you can try to speak to every situation in the organization. I think for us, the challenge is that this expectation was set actually quite some time ago. Mm-hmm. So after COVID, the expectation was set that everybody should be in 3 days a week. So since that time, looking at data, when people are actually in the office, our CEO and staff had discovered that it was 2 at best that mm-hmm. people were actually coming in. So it created a renewed focus on his part and the focus of our senior management to re-emphasize it, which included a whole new round of communications and expectation setting. So the anticipation is one thing. The fact that this may even be perceived as a period that's a little punitive, mm-hmm. right? It's like, because now the hammer is coming down, so to speak. So I think that's making it a little more challenging as well.
Right, and that was part of the conversation that we're seeing very much sparked everyone's interest in the room, and individuals who are in charge of the policy or the recipients of the policy wanting to at least have a stake in the ground, right? As into, let's not oscillate back and forth. Let's also remember that a lot of these organizations weren't 100% remote, and then it became an evolvement as the pandemic hit, and then people had new reset expectations. So now we're going back to bringing folks into the office where they were probably originally hired, but with the expectations starts to come in the accountability structures. Mm-hmm. So curious if you're thinking about what that accountability looks like today and where it might evolve in the future.
Well, we're at this point in time, we're asking our managers to, to keep our employees honest relative to this policy. And so we're expecting managers to manage the way you should manage your team. And that is, if this is the expectation, having them actually hold their folks accountable for coming in. But I think the bigger challenge, or the bigger opportunity rather, with regard to this, is having our managers leverage the fact that they're actually in the office. If everybody comes into the office and then sits at their desks and has virtual meetings anyway with someone who might just be right across the corridor from them, what a waste of time. And I think everybody would acknowledge that. It would be a waste of effort and a waste of opportunity. So we're going to be, as we move through this, we'll be emphasizing the kind of the what's in it for me from the standpoint of a manager. Don't just look at it as a nice thing to do for an employee to do the right thing as a manager. Look at it from the standpoint of, here's what more I can get from my employees if I operate in this way. If I do face-to-face one-on-ones and team meetings and design reviews, et cetera, where can I grab the value from that? And we're trying to get them to see that somewhat differently.
Yeah, I love how much thought that you have all really given to this. And we talked about the intentionality. You have to be meaningful, you have to be deliberate. And a lot of our McKinsey research also shows with the employee experience management practices that you have to get right no matter if you're remote or if you're bringing folks in the office. And that's innovation, connectivity, mentorship, skill development, a lot of the pieces that you touched upon today. And the key takeaway that I want everyone to really go home with is you have to do right for your culture, right? And only you know your business and what you need. And you have to be very articulate about what that means, why we're doing it, and if people want to sign up for that, that's fantastic. And if they don't, right, there's a different organization that caters to different styles and preferences, which is okay, right? Everybody should be doing what drives their bottom line, because that's what this is all in service of, right? How do we get employees to perform? How do we still put humans first? But how do we think about the overarching business objectives and strategy?
Yeah, and I would add that I think also, and this has been, again, another challenge. Being an engineering organization, we have engineers who oftentimes will take policies like this and interpret it very literally,
right.
Very black
right.
and white, right? So yes, 3 days in the week is the rule, but there is flexibility within that rigidity, right? If I need to give one of my employees a couple of extra hours in the morning to get in, so that they have the time to get the kids to school, et cetera, and maybe if they then need to leave a little bit early to go make sure that they're home for their children, we're totally open to that, right? It's not that that rigid, you have to be here 9 to 5 3 days a week. Right. It's yes, 3 days a week, but apply some of that flexibility inside of that rigid structure.
Right, and which allows you to be humans first,
Absolutely.
right? I always say humans first, professional second. And part of the conversation too that was really intriguing today is around performance management. I think that if you have strong performance management, if individuals know what they're responsible for, and frankly, I like knowing what I'm responsible for, because if I have success metrics, I can track and manage towards those. Flexibility, I think, becomes even easier for organizations, for individuals, and understanding the playground that you're operating within. So I really appreciate how thoughtful your organization has been.
Well, I look at it as really, there's two factors that I look at when it comes to whether individuals feel comfortable in their working environment,
Mm-hmm.
and that is clarity and control.
Control.
Clarity of what is my job, who's my manager, what's expected of me, how is my performance evaluated, and then control. I at least have a certain degree of sense of I am the master of my own destiny, right? I can craft my work in a way that works best for me. So, if we can address those two factors in the context of this challenge as well, I think we'll get folks to be not just seeing the value of it for them, but also feeling that sense of this hasn't been taken completely out of my hands, right?
Great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your experience, Dana, and enlightening us.
Sure.
I think if there was a playbook here, right, this probably wouldn't be such a grandiose conversation. So we'll see how it evolves and where everything goes from here.
Yeah, if it was easy, smart people would have figured it out by now, right?
Exactly. All right. Thanks so much, Dana.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.